Nearly 3 million U.S. soldiers served in Vietnam. 50 years after the fall of Saigon, many of those who saw combat suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We spoke with a Vietnam veteran who is healing his wounds while honoring fallen soldiers.
These are the Bronze Stars.
Dennis Fernandez shows off the awards for valor he got in Vietnam.
This one up here is the Veteran of the Year.
And the recognition he's received since then. Fernandez vividly remembers arriving in Vietnam to begin his tour of duty.
Saw action as soon as we landed. We got off the plane, we were being rocketed, so I was scared to death. I thought I just landed in hell.
The year was 1968. Over the next year and a half, he went on search and destroy missions, did ambushes, and went into tunnels chasing North Vietnamese soldiers.
I was soaking wet with perspiration and scared to death. I felt invincible like a lot of us did at that age.
Fernandez was in Vietnam at the peak of U.S. military involvement. When he came back to San Jose, he did not want to talk about what he saw in combat.
The first thing I did when I came home, took off my uniform, I threw it in the closet and just didn't want to deal with it anymore. Just shut it out.
But there were nightmares, flashbacks, and even paranoia.
I had trouble sleeping, I get sweats. I probably slept on the floor for probably 4 or 5 months. So I didn't want to be around the windows where people could see me.
He was able to push it to the back of his mind for the next 30 years. He became a high school teacher, coached basketball, but the post-traumatic stress came racing back once he retired.
It makes you depressed, it makes you emotional. Sometimes it gets severe.
That's a common experience, according to Columbia University researcher Gene Stellman.
At extremely late periods of life, do people start talking and spewing out what they've kept suppressed over the years.
Stellman recently published a groundbreaking study on the health of Vietnam veterans she's been following since 1983. It found that 50 years after their service, nearly a fifth of veterans who saw combat still face serious problems connected to their tour of duty.
After studying these guys for 35 years, the needle hasn't moved. There are a core of people who were severely affected and stayed severely affected.
The study found combat exposure and PTSD are strongly linked to cardiovascular disease and other chronic illnesses. Fernandez suffers from several ailments, which he also blames on exposure to Agent Orange. For him, writing a book about his time in combat was like therapy.
So every time you edit it, you have to go through the story again. So every time repeating it, then after a while you'd get somewhat calloused about it. That was good for me.
He also led an effort to build a monument near downtown to remember 142 San Jose servicemen killed in Vietnam, including some of his friends.
So you could have that memorial so friends and loved ones could go right there to the memorial, wouldn't have to go to D.C.
The monument isn't just for the fallen. It's also for those still living with the scars of war.
There was a lot of hostility to the war, and unfortunately, a lot of people took it out on veterans. When they came home, the more supportive, the less the PTSD outcomes. The higher the hostility, the higher the outcomes.
I would just hope that people recognize that we were young when we were there, and that what we did for our country, and the more support you could give, the better. Welcome home. It's nice to say.
And tonight on a special edition of ABC 7 News at 8:30, we take you to the Aoye Festival in the South Bay and how these young Vietnamese Americans are carrying on that tradition.